Hey, what's up, family? It's Pastor Seth. I got Pastor Jason right here beside me.
Hey, everybody.
Hey, what's up? For another Pastor to Pastor podcast, we've got a treat for you. We've got Pastor Matt Hart from Reclamation Church. Matt, we're so grateful.
Up?
We're so grateful that you're here, Matt. Matt is in Spring Lake, North Carolina. He's been in student ministry for quite a bit. And we want to bring him on here and just talk a little bit about student ministry and hopefully encourage some of our student ministers and pastors who are trying to find student ministries and really what to look for in student ministry and in their leaders. And so let's just open this up and get to know you a little bit, and then we'll dive into some of these deep questions. But let's hear a little bit about your ministry background, like where you're from, what you've been taught, where you've been, where you served at, stuff like that.
Well, I was born and raised Goldsboro, North Carolina.
Okay.
So it was a military town, so I was used to a lot of military people. I grew up, I was saved in a Free Will Baptist church.
Okay.
And it was right at the end of my dead-end road. I used to put in tobacco growing up as a kid and would ride my bicycle to the church.
Nice.
Or somebody would come get me for Sunday school, and that's where I gave my heart to the Lord, and I was baptized. And
Awesome, man.
And then I started at a church that was right down the road that had more teenagers because I was coming up to that age of being a teenager, and my church I was going to had no teenagers. So I started going to a church with more teenagers, and that's where I had my first youth pastor. And I never knew there was such thing as a youth pastor, but
Right.
I had my first youth pastor, and I just began to feel the tug of ministry, and I started serving at that church when I was just 12 years old is when I preached my first sermon.
That's awesome, man.
And I would do, they would do youth services. Now I don't even know if he was on staff as a youth pastor. We had Sunday school teachers. We would have a second Sunday night youth service. I don't know if you remember back in the day, like we'd have youth services and anybody could bring like a cassette tape and you could just put it in and anybody could sing. They didn't care if you could sing or not.
Okay.
No, I don't remember that.
It was
Ooh, let me ask you this real fast. What you just said. Did you say you preached your first sermon at 12?
at 12.
Man, do you know what I was doing at 12 years old? It was not preaching sermons,
I'm
right?
telling.
Yeah. Well, they would do these youth services and they would give me a chance to open up. And I would have my little Bible up there, and I would sing. I don't know if you remember Carmen. I would do old school Carmen songs and do little devotions and
Carmen songs.
Carmen. Do you know who Carmen is?
I don't know Carmen.
Come
You
on.
don't know Carmen?
He
Who's
ain't
in the house?
He ain't as saved as we
No.
thought he was.
Satan
man.
bite the dust,
Oh,
the
come
champion.
on.
No.
Where Jesus boxes the devil.
I mean,
like,
everybody
I
has
think
done
I think I have.
that drama.
Yeah,
Okay,
I have.
okay.
Yeah, I've seen that drama. Yeah, I've seen that
well,
drama.
that's Carmen.
Okay. All right.
And so I would do that. I can't sing, so you
I
could
was going
talk.
to tell us go ahead and sing
I
for
can't
us.
sing, but you could talk those songs and
Okay.
rap,
Yeah.
or rap them, and that would be great.
Wow.
So
Yeah, I don't know about
I'm
no
highly
Carmen, so.
disappointed with Pastor
I
Jay
know.
right here.
But now we have recently, actually, some of our student ministers have done that particular play. We did it at Easter. We've just like 2 years now we've done it, and so
Right.
yeah, I know what you're talking about now. I got you. I'm there with you.
Okay, all right.
But
now
now,
keep,
that's
up,
Carmen.
keep up, old man.
but anything beyond that, Carmen, now I can't help you. I don't know.
do some research.
Carmen
God-
San Diego, like
No,
like
no,
I,
no,
I got that, but I don't know
Oh,
nothing about
my goodness.
no other Carmen.
Well,
now.
look into Carmen. Yeah, God rest his soul. He's going to be with the Lord, but
All right, we're gonna have to
God
look into
rest his
Carmen.
soul. Yeah. Well, I grew up in that church. I had a pastor. My senior pastor began to mentor me a lot, and I would be there in middle school and high school every time the doors were open. Friday nights, I would be there. If he was washing windows, I'd be there. And he just poured into me, and eventually I became the youth pastor of the church I grew up in.
I love it, man.
And then I volunteered at a couple of small country churches, just trying to get my feet wet in ministry and learn the ropes. And I went to Bible college. I went to Heritage Bible College in Dunn. And so I went to Bible college, interned a little bit at a few churches, got my first position. It was a very part-time position. I was still working third shift at Walmart and working in student ministry and children's ministry. And that was at a small country church. And then I got another position as a children's pastor, just straight children. And that was entertaining. That was fun. That
In there.
Yeah,
You've
it
done
was.
that, haven't you?
Oh yeah, you have done that.
4 years, man.
Yeah, man, it was great though. It was so much fun.
I want to back up just a minute though. One thing that I caught you said was that you just showed up. And I think a lot of times in ministry, like a lot of people want the position, they want the title, but they don't want to show up.
Yep.
Like they don't want to show up to clean the toilets. They don't want to show up to vacuum the floor. They don't want to show up to set the stage up. They don't want to show up for audio visual. They don't want to show up for anything except for just to show up and perform.
Yep.
And that's not what serving is about. And so if you can't show up in those hard times, if you can't show up to clean, you
That's right.
and serve, then you shouldn't really show up to minister either.
Right.
And also catch too is what I love about Matt's story is that it started so small. Like you notice he keeps small country churches. A lot of us, unfortunately, the generations that are coming up now want everything handed to them. So they want to start with the large ministries. They want to start with all the accolades. And so it's so important, especially for young ministers that may be listening today, that you understand that don't despise the day of small beginnings, man. And there's a lot of fruit.
Absolutely.
A lot of fruit in just showing up and just serving.
Yeah, just show up.
Right. And it was years before I even knew big existed.
Yeah.
I didn't grow up in a Christian family. My mom was a drug addict. She was a single parent. She was a drug addict, and I eventually had to go live with my grandma when I was 9 years old, and that's where the tobacco farm and working hard came in there, and I had to work for my school clothes or whatever like that. And when I got involved in these churches, I mean, they were the big deal to me, just because Sister such and such loved me in Sunday school. I mean, it was
that's beautiful.
It was. I didn't know there were big churches. I just thought this was it.
Well, it was big to you.
It was big to me, right?
Yeah. And that's all that matters.
There you go.
Being big to you.
Right.
So, anything else in your background you feel like really kind of stands out?
I did get a chance. I was at a larger church, and I started out part time and worked my way of my first full time position, and that was an eye opener. Once you make that transition from volunteer part time to full time, that was different, and I enjoyed it, and was able to learn how to raise up leaders and do different things like that. And a transition happened between that church and where I'm at now, and now I'm at Reclamation Church, and it's another smaller church, but I believe that it's growing, and it's a different kind of church than I've ever been a part of. It really is. It's a thriving church, and not that other churches weren't thriving or healthy, but it almost has a church plant kind of feel to it. It's small but coming up.
Yeah,
gotcha. So how did you know you were called to lead student ministries or to lead students?
Like I said, I met my first youth pastor at my first church, the church that I grew up in. And when I began to get these opportunities to speak to teenagers, and I had a testimony that resonated with those students because I didn't have a dad, so I was able to talk to the kids that didn't have parents.
Yeah. And
I always had the testimony of being able to say, hey, you can forgive. You can forgive. You don't have to be like who your parents are, and if you grew up in a rough home, that doesn't mean you have to come up that way. And I had that testimony that always kind of resonated with students, and I've always been kind of the one that went towards the more broken ones, because I knew what it was like to be broken, and just students just resonated to me, and just to see the lights come on when you talk to them, and I remember the first time that I did it, I knew the first time, and it's not just something that I ever wanted to do to step up to be something else. It's just something I knew that I was supposed to do. Now, if that calling happens one day to be something else, I'd be open to it. But I just knew student ministry was what gripped my heart.
Man,
gotcha.
That's awesome. What is like one, if you could say this is my favorite thing about student ministry, like it's the top tier of the list that you love about it, what would you say it would be?
I mean, it's just fun. The fun part of it, but the fun part where you build the relationships, and then when you preach, you're not just preaching to strangers, you're preaching to kids that you know, and you see that when I said a while ago, to see that light come on, just that light come on, that student that has been giving you trouble for years
finally
just clicks, and they come down, they pray, and now they're leading or doing something like that, and that would be my favorite part.
That's great though. It sounds like you create space for them to lead, like was created for you, and that opportunity for you to lead. It's like that space was created for you, and it sounds like now you're kind of creating space for other people to learn and grow and lead.
Right, absolutely. That's something that in building the student ministry that I'm building, because I stepped into nothing. They had students, they had leaders, but they didn't have a youth pastor.
Yeah.
And so anything I do right now was new. So only way to go is up. So
There you go.
But I did try to incorporate, like now we do Bible studies. Like if you're a student, you want to do a 3-minute devotion before any service, just let me know.
That's awesome.
And then I just go find them. Like, hey, I feel like, maybe God's got a word. Have you been thinking of praying or anything? And if they say, yeah, I said, hey, why don't you just take a couple minutes, tell us.
Yeah.
And they'll get up and they'll do that. And I'm starting to train them to do, lights and media and just anywhere else I can find for them to serve. They love it. That's what brings them.
Yeah.
I mean, they know they can't miss student ministry because they got a job. They got something to do.
Right.
Yeah.
They feel a part, connected to the church, not just another number, not just another kid, a kid in the church, but they can play a role into the overall vision. I love that. What are some typical growth strategies that you have for student ministry? Maybe that's someone who's listening or a pastor who's trying to help their student pastor grow their student ministry. What are some things that you've seen that's worked for you? Now, of course, let's preface this that not every growth strategy will work for everybody. But, you never know. You might say something today that someone's never thought about trying that could really turn their student ministry around.
And I just also want to preface this by saying you need to pray. Just because you hear a good idea doesn't necessarily mean that it's for your ministry. Right. You've got to pray. But I do believe we can learn from each other.
Absolutely.
And I do believe some things that work in one places will work in some other places. That's right. Definitely got to pray, though. Definitely got to seek God's face in every decision that you make in ministry. But please,
Saul's armor was good, but it wasn't good for David.
Come on, somebody.
Same way with how we do ministry as well.
Absolutely.
Right. Yeah. Honesty is a big thing. You need to know where you're at. You need to know your students.
Okay.
You need to know that when you're talking about growth, don't let growth be so at the forefront of your mind that you're not in love and satisfied with the people that you have.
Yeah, that's good.
Because students will know that. Students, if you go in talking about growing, students will be like, well, I'm here. What are you doing for me at this point?
Yeah.
So you got to learn how to love the ones that are in front of you first. I understand that Jesus had 12 disciples and changed the world with them. So my first church that I had a position at, I had 2 teenagers, 2 middle school girls that were cousins. And I walked in there and I painted the walls, black lights, LED lights. I just thought I was going to build this massive student ministry. And those 2 girls walked in and looked at me like I was out of my mind.
Yeah.
And I began to think, well, how am I going? 2 middle school girls. What would I do with 2 middle school girls? Like if I was like not in church, like if I was their parent or something, how would I get them to invite their friends? And so I just started thinking of the context. Well, teenagers like to invite each other to a party or like to invite each other out to eat. So we would start celebrating their birthdays, or we would start on Sunday nights, we would go out and eat. And I would say, hey, if you bring a guest, that person eats free.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they started bringing their friends. And when
if
they
it's
would bring
free, it's for me.
Right. They'd bring a friend, and that friend would eat for free, and they would bring a friend, and before it grew from 2 to 25.
Nice.
Because we were incorporating that kind of stuff. It's being honest with who you got. I understand that students value relationships.
Yeah.
They know real. They know authentic. They know when you truly love them.
Yeah.
My mentor, Jeannie Mayo, from the Cadre Ministry, she's been doing student ministry for over 40 plus years. And one of the things in her book that she wrote was, if you failed the friendliness test, you failed the whole thing.
Man,
you got to pass the friendliness test. It doesn't matter what speakers, what bands, what lights, what all the stuff is we think that we need.
That's it.
That to grow a student ministry. If you're not friendly, they're not coming.
That's right.
I think that expands even into ministry as a whole, because if people come into your church, if people come into your ministry and they don't feel like you're genuine, or they don't feel like you're honest about who you are, or that you're faking it, like they can pick up on it. And that's one thing that I can say, about our ministry that I truly am thankful for, is that the people here are genuine. And so when you walk in off the street, it doesn't matter what your background is, doesn't matter what your social status is. Look, Christ died for all of us.
Yeah.
Right.
And that's the first thing we want you to know, is that we love you, God loves you, and that there's a place for you. And so, yeah, I think that's a great initial thing, right? You got to be genuine to begin with.
Yeah,
You gotta be genuine.
we were, we understand this is that the same thing with big church, as many people call it, but even with student ministry, is that they're not just a number.
Yeah.
It's not just a number we're trying to check and just see and do the statistics that we should have at least 10% of the church in student ministry. Like, it's been like 6 or 7, maybe 8 years since I've been in student ministry. And if it's all right, I'd like to share a strategy that we grew our student ministry
Absolutely.
from about 30 to 100, 120 in 6 months. Now, again, this strategy doesn't work for everybody. But we were at a church who, for 9 months, had no student pastor, and so they were volunteer-based. They went 9 months from when their student pastor left to a space there, and me and my wife, at the time, we weren't married, but so it's been, wow, man, I'm getting old. It's been probably 9 years now.
Wow.
And so we were in about 30 there, and what I decided to do is not necessarily take the focus off the students, but I started building relationships with parents and begin to cast vision with parents. This is why your students need to be here on Wednesday night or Sunday night whenever we did it. And because I built a relationship with the parents and they trusted me and understood that if they push a relationship with me and their kids, then their kids would come out better from it. And I'm telling you, within 6 months, because of the value that I add onto the student, but also to the parent, both of the investments that we've made, we grew and just blew it out of, just off the wall. And I think that a lot of times we get so focused on just the students that we neglect the reality that they have two parents who are covering them too, who really want to trust you. And if your parents will trust you, they'll trust me and they'll trust you, they'll get their kids to student ministry.
Right.
Yeah. So is there anything else that you can think of right off the top that has really you've seen recently, like help you grow your student ministry?
And the student involvement,
Yeah.
just giving them ownership of the ministry. The students that stand up and lead a Bible study, they're going to invite their friends to come see them lead the Bible study.
Yeah, that's good.
If you put them on the worship band, they're going to invite their friends to come. If you give them ownership, they're going to invite their people to come see it.
Yeah.
If you treat them like they're just another product, they're just another number, they're just going to come like that if they come at all. But if you start giving them ownership of what they're doing, the sky's the limit. They'll start bringing their friends and come see me when I do this. And hey, I got a friend that can sing too. Can she get on the stage and sing too? And you let them get up there and sing or whatever. And I've seen that work. It does work.
Yeah.
Because not everybody just wants to come up. Believe it or not, they don't want to come up and stare at me for 30 minutes. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be the popular one in their high school. They might be though.
Yeah, sure.
And you find those key core students. And that's another thing. Find those core students and bring them and talk to them. I think they call them Paul Revere meetings. But bring the ones together that have influence, and say, hey, what kind of student ministry would you like?
Yeah.
Like what are your ideas? And instead of just always telling them what to do, hey, what would you like to see them do? Like right now, they're pushing for a lock-in hard. I'm like, so I guess I'm having a lock-in.
Yeah.
I was kind of the anti-lock-in there for a little while, but
Don't miss them days, boy.
Me either.
they're pushing for that lock-in. But I know if I have the lock-in, those students that are trying to get me to have a lock-in, they're inviting all their people.
Oh yeah.
To come to this lock-in.
And it's a huge opportunity. I think we talked about this prior to starting to record, but it's not just babysitting. Like student ministry is not just babysitting kids until service is over or until the parents come and get them. Like it's not babysitting. And if you view it as babysitting, you're really missing out on time on true ministry and leading and shepherding these kids.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because I'm thinking like you got a house full of kids, man. What a perfect opportunity to preach the gospel.
Oh yeah.
And share it with them. On top of fun, games, food, things like that. But I mean, at the heart of everything, it's got to be teaching them about Jesus.
Yep.
Oh, absolutely.
Because that could be the only moment that they felt loved all week. They felt encouraged. They felt seen.
Yeah.
A lot of kids today feel invisible, and student ministry is a great opportunity. And I'd say if you look at it as babysitting, maybe you need to change the ministry that you're serving in and give that spot to somebody else. So,
Big kid nursery.
That's right.
Yeah, it's not babysitting. If this is a baby, I'm not a good babysitter. So
No, that's right. Me either.
We're raising up. We're we say this at Reclamation Church. We're not just babysitting your kids. We're raising up your next pastor.
Yeah, that's right.
We're raising up your next worship leader, your next, and not just for the church of tomorrow, but the church of today.
Yeah.
Because the same ones that serve on Wednesday nights for me in student ministry have started serving on Sunday mornings now in church. We went a while, I think, in student ministry where there's this whole separation, kind of like I have to have my own separate. If I have a student ministry, it's got to have its separate logo, its separate name, its separate mission statement, its separate all this kind of stuff, because the church is over here and we're over here now. Now, when you graduate, we're going to kick you out to go over there. But yeah, we got you till 12th grade. I think our culture has to change on that, and has changed. And in the churches that I've seen that are growing, they do change. You do see the younger people running the camera, younger people running media on the platform. You see that more, that they're just not looked at as we're babysitting the church of tomorrow. Yeah, but we're equipping the church of today.
That's absolutely right, and that's actually kind of one of the questions that we have for you is how do you balance or steward the vision for students and the pastor's overall vision for the church?
Right, it shouldn't be different.
Exactly,
it shouldn't be different. If the mission of Reclamation Church for us is bringing broken stories one step closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
My mission for students is bringing broken students one step closer to Jesus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's written on our wall, and it's the same wall that we have every ministry through. That pastor is the head of the church, and he's still the shepherd. And right. I'm an under shepherd for the students, but he's still their shepherd.
Yeah.
And there shouldn't be that separation, kind of a parachurch mentality that we're separate. And then, that's why it was so hard sometimes growing up trying to kick students out of student ministry. Like that's why you got they're in college and still want to stay in student ministry. They're 24. Okay, eventually you need to leave student ministry. Right. You're an adult now.
Right.
It's because we separated them. We pulled them out, and we from the time they were in children's church, that they would leave children's ministry and then go to student ministry, and they were, for all those years from birth to 12th grade, they were separated from the church. And then you just expect us to throw them in there and expect them to expect them to swim.
Yeah.
No, they can be incorporated.
Yep.
It's one body, one mission, one values, one set of values, one body.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think are some of your biggest obstacles in student ministry?
Biggest obstacles. I think students.
Budgets.
No
money.
Budgets is tough. That is one of the biggest differences from where I came from to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
I had a church credit card from where I came from. And not really. I didn't have to worry about anything.
Yeah.
But now, we're in a church where, it's a growing church, but it's a growing church.
Yeah.
And so the budget, it's not where it was.
We want to have elevation worship.
We can play the CD is what we can, or play it off our phone.
It's like, hey, can we afford Little Caesars tonight? I need 5 pieces.
Yeah, man.
Right. Like I used to be, Little Caesars was like at the bottom. Like I at least wanted to get Domino's or Papa John's or whatever. Right. Now I love that Little Caesars. Give me the Little Caesars.
Yeah.
Call DoorDash and tell them to bring it because, it's cheap. But yeah, just the money in student ministry. But if you get creative, that takes care of itself.
Yeah.
And parents invest if they need to, and they'll cook or whatever. But I think students are pulled in so many different ways these days. It's something every single night for them. You sit there and talk to a student and you just hear them tell you about their life, and you're like exhausted because they have, baseball practice this day, they have dance this day, they have all these other things, and you're trying to get them to come to church on Wednesdays or do something on Sundays. I'm like, when are you ever home?
Right.
Yeah.
Like when are you ever with your parents and just sitting there watching TV or sitting there relaxed? They're not.
Yeah.
And just know that when you have a student, you have if they're giving you their time, they're giving you something valuable because they don't have that much.
That's good to think through.
But you're also battling stuff because it's easy for them just to say, I got too much to do. And sometimes I say I don't really blame you, honestly, because I want you here, but you got to be exhausted.
Yeah.
It's that. So they're pulled so many different ways. They're pulled so many ways as far as culture is concerned. There's something new. Seems like every week. It's like we are facing like national crisis or worldwide crisis about one a week now.
Yeah.
I think they're living things like, me growing up, I never heard of some of the things, but it's like now they're experiencing like pandemics and wars and everything all in a very short time. So I think you deal with that. You deal with attention spans. You're dealing with a TikTok generation.
Yeah.
That if it don't happen in 15 seconds, they're swiping to the next.
Yeah.
So you got to stay energetic. You got to keep their attention.
Yeah, I noticed that even in the children's videos that they do this camera switch, and I don't know about camera switch, and I used to film, but they do this camera switch, like they do a perspective change every 10 to 15 seconds. They're changing the look to keep their interest from one thing to another.
Yep.
And it's moved right on into students and even into adults. I mean, think about TikTok or these little shorts that YouTuber is doing, or some of these other things. There's these things that's constant pull for their attention visually, audibly, and in many different ways. So you're right. I mean, you're combating that mentality, that switch mentality over and over again.
And unfortunately, for not just student ministry as a whole, one of the first things that people choose to eliminate out their schedule is church.
Right.
Yeah.
Time with God. And so, that's definitely an obstacle. When you find all the answers on how to keep people in church, even in student ministry, you let me know.
Yeah, right.
I'm going to start implementing that thing.
Yeah, I remember we had a student. She was a middle schooler who came to our student ministry at my last church. And I was really excited. Her and her family were getting in church, and we all went and ate pizza together after a volleyball game or whatever. And the dad just looked at me and straight, because I'm telling him we're going to like Winterfest, we're going to take them to, we do lock-ins. And he's like, yeah, I'm just going to let you know though, springtime, ball is life.
Yeah.
He looked like dead in my eye. You're not going to see her until all that's done. Yeah,
until you need to call your student pastor because they can't control their kid, and then we'll see her.
Right. But ball is life, and you're trying to get. You're just trying to be a positive influence, and you're trying to get them into good things, and just have, not that ball is not good, but to say ball is life, and they're going to do travel ball in the summer and the competition, all that kind of stuff. You might see them again around Christmas time.
Yeah.
Yep.
And so I'm like, wow, that's, and I'll say, probably one of the biggest things we do deal with as student ministry, sometimes I have to say, is parents.
Oh, wow.
Parents. Parents that
parents have this idea of how their kids' life should go,
right?
And they've got a strangle on their life and what they will and won't do. And like you said, ball is life. You know where that kid's going to be, and it may not necessarily always be the kid's decision. It could be the parents' decision that ball is life.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that, and you just look at you don't look at Facebook for the students because they're not there. But if you look at Facebook, you see the parents.
Yeah.
And you see the parents living as much drama as the kids are.
Mm.
Yep. Oh, that'll preach. Let's don't. We can go down that thing now.
You're seeing the parents that you want me to get your kids' life together, but you're struggling to have your life together.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well,
and you're fussing this person, complaining this person. And I see all the stuff you put on. I'm like, you got a kid that's right there looking at you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And seeing how you're handling this stuff. And then they're going to come to student ministry, and you're going to ask me, like, what can I do to help? I'm like, well, you can help. I have them, if they come to student ministry on Wednesday nights, I have them for an hour and a half a week.
That's it.
And if they come every Wednesday night, and say they come Sunday mornings to church, an hour and a half service. So that's 3 hours a week of ministry that your kid's going through. What's going on with the rest of the time?
Yep. Yeah.
I mean, there's some things that have to be implemented in the home as well.
Yeah, there's got to be a break in that cycle. But yeah, I mean, that's for everybody though. I mean, you're right. You see on social media, and then you want to bring me to fix them when it's got to start at home. And I think that's just in culture as a whole. Families used to sit around the table and eat dinner, like we still do. And I ask my kid, hey son, how was school today? or how was this, or how was that, and we have these conversations. It's an opportunity for us to eat and for me to share wisdom and pick apart their day and to help guide them and lead them. But families don't do that much anymore. Now it's because they're grabbing something between ball practice, or they're doing something, and parents aren't leading by example. See, there's this curse word now in Christianity and really in the world called accountability.
Wow.
And
they don't like that.
don't say that, right? There's many of us who don't like accountability, and accountability, I'm sorry, for the Christian is important.
It's a necessity.
It's necessity. We like the word keeps us accountable. Our peers keep us accountable. Our pastors should be keeping us accountable. Our bishops should be keeping us accountable. And that accountability is kind of like it help guides and direct us.
Right. Some people use that word church hurt. That means somebody probably tried to keep you accountable.
Right.
Yeah,
Somebody
that's
tried
the
just
truth.
to correct you and you didn't like it.
Yeah.
And so you went somewhere else.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is the case a lot of times.
Spend the whole podcast on that.
Yeah.
Ooh. Hey, I got one for you. This is a more practical question that kind of helps some people who are young in ministry. It's a two-part question. Is one, what does a service look like for you? What is that structure? What are some things that you've tried that didn't work, things that did work on as far as the flow of a service? And then the second question is how do you go about building your team? Do you handpick certain people? Do you go to them and ask them to join your leadership team as far as adult-wise? Or do you just have sign-ups and whoever signs up, you just cultivate them into a leader? So let's just start off with what's the flow of your service look like for people who are trying to determine what's the best way to interact with students, get the word in, get the fun in, and have a healthy balance so they have a successful ministry.
Right. To me, a service should look like about an hour long. And the way we have our structure right now, it's an hour and a half, but the half an hour at the beginning is when we have the fun stuff.
Yeah.
It's when we have the games. It's when we have food.
Get that energy out.
Get the energy out, or get the
sweating and
energy in.
stinking.
Yeah. Well, we'll celebrate birthdays once a month. Everybody had a birthday that month. That's when we're going to throw you the party. This coming Wednesday, we're going to have our Friendsgiving, Italian Friendsgiving. So
cool.
That's when we have that. But then the countdown's going to hit like at 5 minutes to 7.
Mm-hmm.
And at 7 o'clock, the fun's gone.
Yeah.
And I used to, you want to talk about things that didn't work. I used to want to do like worship and then kind of go into a game or something, or a game, then go into worship. And I just found like putting that game right with worship sometimes can break it. You don't want to do that. I like to keep my games before countdown. My games, because they know when that countdown ends, it is time for worship. It's time to hear the word. It's time to get the silliness going. And so what we do is we do that we open up. I'll welcome everybody and do announcements. And then I'll have a student come up and lead a devotion. And if I need to kind of coach at the end of that devotion, kind of help them flow, or help the kids understand what he was saying or she was saying, I'll do that. But if not, I'll go into worship. And I got, Pastor Rob's daughter leads worship. And so she'll do about 2 or 3 songs. And then I'll come back up and I'll preach. Now, depending on what night or what my goal is, sometimes I'll have an altar call at the end of that. Sometimes I have small groups. So I do have small groups where I got it split up between middle school boys, middle school girls, high school boys, high school girls. So if it's at the end of a service that I think the students would want more discussion, I will split off to their small groups. Mm-hmm. And in those small groups, they're going to pray for them. They're going to discuss all the stuff.
Are those student-led or is they leader-led?
Those are leader-led.
Okay.
Leader-led. And sometimes we do circle night. Sometimes once a month we do something called circle night where we just circle up the chairs. And instead of doing like a service model, we do a circle model, kind of where worship is done in the middle of the circle, the game is done in the middle of the circle, and I speak in the middle of the service and I let students talk to me in the circle. So they love that. So that flows for us, and that's, I haven't been at Reclamation Church that long, so I'm still finding what flows. I'm still finding what works and what doesn't. I've tried to take sometimes the engines from other churches and put it in this vehicle, and it's not running. Mm-hmm. So I had to figure out what this culture's like. And so, but so far that's been going really well at Reclamation.
I love the concept of adding like what you call the circle night, because what it does is it gives students something fresh to look forward to within the month, instead of every week being the same exact thing. It kind of switches them up. You talk about like the TikTok mindset that goes to the next thing so quickly. And so I love that. If you're trying to build student ministry, that's something to really consider.
Right. Well, I do once a month we do First Wednesdays. And First Wednesdays is always a creative night. So it's something that has some element of creativity, some element of fun outside the box. We did the Black Light Easter egg hunt. That was one of our first Wednesday nights. We did.
Tell me about the Black Light
Easter egg hunt. Yeah. Oh my gosh, we took like 600 Easter eggs and just spray painted them with fluorescent paint.
Okay,
and then went to the sanctuary and brought in these massive black lights, and just, I don't want to say trash the sanctuary, but we took like black light reactive toilet paper, put it all over the place, lights, and
like a VBS for hunting Easter eggs.
It looked like a laser tag place.
Yeah.
By the time we were done, and when we threw out all the 600 Easter eggs all over the church, and then let the kids in or let the students in, like, and I told them, hey, if you got any reactives clothes, you should wear them that night, and so they'd come in and they did the black light Easter egg hunt. They loved it. They've never had. This year we're going to do a black light prom.
Okay.
Black light prom. So they're going to dress up in prom clothes and make it reactive, and then we'll have dances and music and stuff like that.
Sorry.
That'll be an outreach. So that's kind of what our first Wednesday nights are. It's a creative outreach type night, where you want to invite your friends to this. Like, this is going to be something different.
Yeah.
This is going to be, whether it be, in January, our sermon's going to be about radical faith. And so it's a throwback. So it's from the 80s and 90s. So on our first Wednesday night, we're going to have a throwback night.
That's cool.
Where, dress as your favorite decade and do something like that. So that'll be our first Wednesday night in January. So they know that's on first Wednesday night. They know that we're going to celebrate birthdays on one Wednesday night. They know that we're going to have circle night on one Wednesday night. And they know that we'll do small groups at least one Wednesday night. So they know that there's going to be some element every Wednesday night that's going to be different.
Changed up, yeah. Do you have a creative team that helps you with those first Wednesdays?
I have my leadership team. Okay. Now, some of those were inherited. When I got there, it was a very leader-run ministry. Mm-hmm. And great. I have an amazing group of leaders. They are so creative. They're young. That's something I'm not used to.
Right.
Other places I've been, I've had older leaders, which there's nothing wrong with that. There's a wisdom there, and they were faithful, so faithful. But these younger college-age leaders have so much creativity and energy, and I've told them, they don't have to. I mean, if they don't connect with me, it's okay. But if they connect with one of you, that's even better.
Yeah,
if they connect with one of the small group leaders. And they're all the same people right now. I mean, it's not like we have a separate small group team, a separate creative team, they're all the same people.
Yeah.
At least for right now.
Yeah.
We're running about 25 to 30 students at this point. And so we're not huge, but we have good leaders. And like I said, some of those were inherited. To answer the other part of your question, I guess that'll be a good segue to answer that. Some of them were inherited. Other ones, we actually have a process in our church. It's not growth track, but you come to belong. It is the class that we call it on Saturday. We'll go one Saturday a month, I think. Mm-hmm. And if you join if you want to join the church, if you want to know more about our church, you just go that whole morning. That's when they teach you the culture, the values, all that kind of stuff of the church, and you join the church. But when you join the church, we find out about your spiritual gifts. We find out about your personality. We find out where would you like to serve.
Yeah.
And by the end of that class, you were placed into a ministry team.
Wow.
You were at least placed with the leader of that ministry team.
And that's for the youth ministry team, or is that for the whole church?
The whole church.
Yeah,
the whole
cool.
church. So every key leader is in this class. So when you see somebody that is moving towards student ministry, I'll go over there and talk to them.
Yeah.
And
You'd be trying to do like draft process.
Like,
Come on,
listen, I'll
man.
be
You
honest.
gotta help over
Yeah.
here.
Like, look, I really don't want you, okay? But I do want you.
Yeah.
all right.
Have you heard a voice? If you hear a voice to say, "Here I am, Lord,"
Yeah.
your
yeah.
servant is listening.
You would be great with kid ministry.
Right.
Yeah, I can see you would be great with kid ministry.
Yeah. Yeah. So that's what we do, and
That's pretty simple.
And when we get their names, then we do have leaders. Sometimes that'll send our names, like this person signed up, they're interested in student ministry, and then I reach out to them, and there's a process, get them background checked, and then I kind of do a no commitment, try it. I mean, if you see it and you try it, you don't like it, you don't have to do it.
Yeah, we used to call those test drives.
Test
In
drives,
kids
right.
ministry, I'd say come test drive it. If you don't like it, then fine, but you'll like it.
At least try it.
Yeah, at least try it one time.
But most
That's
of
what
them
you
like
feel
it.
about. Yeah.
Most of them, once they get into it, they like it. Now, if I do see specific ones in the church that aren't doing anything, and I think they would have a good groove with students, and I see them, either they have students or I've seen them hanging out with the students, I'll go to them. I'm like, hey, have you ever thought about just coming hanging out with us on one Wednesday night? Or like that first Wednesday night that I told you about, that's always a good catalyst. That's always a good test drive place. Because I'm like, hey, this Wednesday night, we're doing this super creative bonfire or something outside, and I need somebody that'll help me come grill or help me come roast marshmallows, and would you be willing to do that? And most of the time they'll say yeah, and if they come in, they like it, they stay. If they don't, they don't come back.
And if they say no, hey, okay, this isn't for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you just say no, you won't come help students
Yeah.
eat marshmallows.
You might want to go to the ushers or the
Yeah,
greeters,
Oh yeah.
go to the creative team or something. I don't know.
I love it, man. I'm good. I don't think I have any more thoughts or questions, Pastor Jason.
Yeah, no, I'm good, man. I really appreciate the fresh perspective because I know that just I've been around a few different ministries, and I know that kids ministry, student ministry, almost like we got to do it, or but no, it is a ministry, and here we even our security is a ministry. Like we're serious about everything that we do being ministry and be an opportunity for us to pour into people to help them grow. And it's a part, even like our security, like we do the next steps, like security is a portion of, the next step, if that's where you feel called to serve.
Right.
I mean, as I'm sure it is for most churches, but no, I definitely appreciate the fresh perspective. And what's an event you guys have coming up soon?
Oh, wow. An event that we got coming up. So we got the Italian Thanksgiving coming up this Wednesday. For Christmas, we'll probably I think we're going to do like an ugly sweater type thing.
Okay.
Yeah, he's got a ton of those. You're
Ugly sweater.
I got one. What are you talking about?
Or I'm thinking about a floating Christmas party. I don't know if you've ever seen a floating Christmas party. Where,
I have not.
Where you think of it, you got an appetizer, main dish, dessert. You find 3 houses, 3 people with good size. Don't send them some rinky-dink house, but some good size, nice
Not
house.
the rinky-dink.
So some clean house that they're going to take care of them, and relatively close.
Yeah.
So you go to this family's house, like, hey, you're going to be hosting our students for their appetizer.
Okay.
And the families will love it.
Uh-huh.
They're like, oh my gosh. So their students will show up. They'll have appetizers. They can sing songs. They can play games, whatever. But I let that family be in charge of it. Like, will you host us? What would you like to do? And especially if they're like little senior adults or something, sometimes they love that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And so when they're done with appetizer, get back on the van, get back on the bus, go to the next house. That's where you're going to have your main course.
I love how he said the little senior adults.
The little senior adults.
Because as you get older, you begin to shrink. So
You do.
Yeah.
You do.
Kind of like you,
Okay, whoa.
starting to shrink. Anyway, we'll move on.
All right. Shots fired, target hit, okay?
Yeah, you're all right. You got more feelings later.
Oh, yeah, he's all right. And then, of course, you end up at the dessert, and a lot of times that's the big. A lot of times that might be like at my house or something.
Yeah.
Or
Of course, you would do the dessert
or at the
portion.
church. Well, I got a house now that I can invite people to. So I finally live a minute down the road from my church. So I was commuting 2 hours, so I wasn't able to do this stuff.
Dedication, son.
That's a drive. Hey, just show up takes on a new meaning when
Just
it's a 2 hour
showing up.
drive.
That's right.
Just showing up, yeah. And that's one thing I told my kids when I first got there. I'm like, hey, I just want you to know I'm going to show up for you, and I want you to know I'm driving 2 hours to be here for you.
Yeah, for you.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, you're loved. And now that I'm there, I still say I love them. But
Yeah.
Yeah,
for
that's
sure.
right. Yep.
What is the most used app on your phone?
My most used app on my phone, I would have to say I look at TikTok.
TikTok? You use TikTok that much?
Well, my pastor sends me them.
Pastor Rob. Pastor Rob.
I'll be in. It's either Instagram or TikTok.
Okay.
Because it's the Instagram Reels. He'll just send me a funny video at midnight, and which
it's
is
all
so
ministry stuff, right?
Yeah, sure.
We're
in the church. This is the church office, so it don't count, right? Okay. But yeah, just funny stuff, man. I love my pastor, man. He's the only pastor I've ever had that was younger than me.
Oh yeah, okay.
Pastor Rob Miller, shout him out. He is a fantastic guy. Him and his wife Adrian, man, they're a great couple. You guys are gonna be successful. Church as a whole, student ministry, man. We love Reclamation Church. We love what you guys are doing, and
I've heard a lot of great things.
Keep it up, man. God's moving. Move with him.
Absolutely.
Move with him. Thank you so much. You good?
Yeah, I'm great.
Thanks so much for being with us, Matt. Hey, listen, if you have enjoyed this podcast, you feel like it's something that not only can help you, but can help someone you know, share it on any platform, the videos, the podcast. Give us a like, subscribe. Any way you can help us get this podcast out, so we appreciate it. And before we leave with you, we want to give you a blessing. It's in Numbers chapter 6, verses 24 on down to 26. It's a priestly blessing, and we want to bless you before we send you on the way. Then the Lord said to Moses, and he blessed him with this. He said, "May the Lord bless you and protect you, and may the Lord smile on you and be gracious to you. May the Lord show you his favor and give you his peace." We're so honored and grateful that you took time to listen or to watch this podcast. Share it with someone. We'll see you here next time on Pastor to Pastor.
That's it. Y'all have a good night.